Suprasayam. Good evening to all of you. I hope we can begin. Sriman Venkatanatharyaha Kavitarkika Kesari Vedantacharya Varyo Me Sannidhattam Sadahridi. Let me recite the first verse of the first chapter, Prabhava Paddhati of Sri Padukasahasram of Sri Vedantadeshika. Santashriranga Prithvisha Charanatrana Shekharaha Jayanti Bhavanatrana Padapangajarena Namaha. So we also recite the first verse of this particular chapter, Prabhava Paddhati, number 3. Vande Rangan Tadranganathasya Manyam Paduko Yoryugam Unnatanam Avanatirnatanam Yatra Chonnatihi. So we have been seeing in the previous session that 7 Bhakti Prahvapura Prabhanjana Jata. So that was 7th one. And we saw the inner meaning that the priest in the temple of Ranganatha take pride as well as do their duty sincerely by holding the shatari on their head as soon as they enter into the sanctum sanctorum, because it has been recommended by people who are knowledgeable, and according to the Agama Shastra called Pancharatram, which has been specifically called Parameshwara Samhita with regard to Sri Ranganatha's temple of Sri Rangam. This was the action that we understand from the 7th verse of the Prabhava Paddhati, the 3rd chapter of Sri Padukasahasram of Sri Vedantadeshika. So we go to the next one. So the 8th verse starts with He Mataha, Mataha Madhava Paduke, O Mother, O the divine sandals of the husband of Mahalakshmi, Madhava. So it is very difficult for any person to completely describe the auspicious and numberless qualities of Paduka, divine sandals, just as we cannot describe fully the numerous auspicious characteristics of the divine couple, namely Ranganayika and Ranganatha. So the people from heaven, the gods from heaven also dash to the temple of Ranganatha in Srirangam. They are very much devoted to the divine sandals, and they want the shatari to be placed on their heads, and they push themselves each other, and then so they go in a competitive spirit to get the first placement on their head, the shatari. And when they are making a lot of noise by gathering together, so Vishwaksena is there to control the crowd, and he subdues the noise of the gods who make rather dashes along with the human beings who are the devotees of earth. Here I want to quote a parallel of an Alvar's Divya Prabandham. Thirumangai Alvar, he was one of the kings among the 12 Alvars. There were 2 kings, one was Kulashekara and then the other was Thirumangai Mannan. Thirumangai Mannan has the distinction of building a great wall in Ranganatha's temple so that it's very difficult for a thief to enter and do burglary, rather steal away the jewels of Ranganatha. So here it was also said that once a thief tried to scale the wall and tried to jump into the sanctum sanctorum. Now, Thirumangai has composed and blessed us with thousands of songs. So along with the other one, Nammalvar, who has also given us 1,000 songs in Tamil called Divya Prabandham. So when he refers to a temple which you might have known, you might have even gone and worshipped, that is Tiruchitrakutam, namely or otherwise called Chidambaram, where Lord Nataraja is in the form of sky, and therefore we call it Akashalingam. Akashalingam. So he says in the Periya Tirumozhi, as we call his Divya Prabandham, Mava Inangam Madiyadu Kiri, Mazhai Mamudu Kundreduthu, Ayarthangal Kovayin Nirai Meithu, Ulagundamayan, Kuraima Kadal Kodum Kurippudaiyir, Moovayiram Nanmarayalam Naalum Murayal Vananga, Anangaya Shodhi Devadi Devan Thigalகின்ற தில்லை திருச்சித்ரகூடம் சென்று சேர்மின்களே. This is in contrast with the halu balu we say in making strides to the temple sanctum sanctorum and trying to get the shatari on their head from the hands of the priest. So whereas 3,000 devotees come together in Chidambaram, in Tiruchitrakutam, they want to worship both Nataraja, Lord Nataraja and Lord Govindaraja. Pundarikavalli is the name of the goddess there. So Lord Govindaraja is also in the lying position as Sri Ranganatha in Srirangam. So, but when they are disciplined, they go in a queue, they go in a line and get their shatari on their head very in a regularly way. So that was a contrast and comparing between Ranganatha of Srirangam. Here you will find in Srirangam, the people, the devotees will dash each other. Though all the devotees may belong to even the Srirangam town, they will always go and try to find a first place with a competitive spirit to get the shatari on their head. So we saw in the 9th verse that the divine feat of Ranganatha performed many feats, F-E-A-T-S. The feat made feats. And then, so adventures. So there are 5 examples given in the 9th verse. And remembering the greatness of the divine feat of Ranganatha, the divine sandals are so much attached to the divine feet, and therefore Vedantadeshika, the celebrated author of Sri Padukasahasram, worships the divine feet and also the divine sandals. As we understand, we cannot worship separately Sri Ranganayika, the goddess Mahalakshmi, and Sri Ranganatha, rather the Archavatara of Sriman Narayana, separately. We have to just always remember them together as a couple, divine couple. So we go to the 10th verse. Vande tan madhukaitabha haripadayoho mitram padatradvayam yattat bhakti bhara anatena shirasa yatra kvachit bibhrati Ditra Brahma Vinadikavadhi Padavyathyasa Shankabhara Trahasotkampa Dasha Visamschuladhritihi Traivishtapanam Ganaha. Though many gods rather not many gods, almost all gods come to the temple of Ranganatha and worship. So they are always faced with some fear or other. So generally, even we, when we want to gain knowledge, we undergo a course, we face an examination, we write it, we pass, and we want to get distinction. And the examination creates a lot of fear in us. It should create. If we don't have fear over examination, we won't study the subject deeply. Now here, the gods always are in trouble. If they are not in trouble, then they will forget the God, the Almighty. And therefore, they must have trouble. So, unless we have problems, we will not be brisk, we will not be busy, we will be idle. Therefore, one day, he says, Vedantadeshika says, one day I bow to whom? Padatradvayam, the two divine sandals. Dvayam, the pair, Padatra, Padam Trati, iti Padatra, Padatram. So I salute the two divine sandals. Who is that? Who are that two divine sandals? Mitram, the friend. Friend to whom? Padayoho, of the divine feet. Whose divine feet? Madhukaitabha Ari. Madhu and Kaitabha were the two, what you call, twin demons who came out of the divine frame, physical frame of Lord Vishnu, and then they did the stealing act of, they stole scriptures, and then the scriptures had to be retrieved from them, and therefore Lord went and finished them, and therefore he is called the enemy of Madhukaitava. We have the word Madhusudana, you would have heard about Madhusudana. Kaitabhari is a name, another name. So Madhukaitabhari, Lord Vishnu or Lord Sriman Narayana or Lord here Ranganatha. So Lord Ranganatha's divine feet are the friends of the divine sandals. So I bow to them. Vande tan madhukaitabhari padayor mitram padatradvayam. Now, as soon as even a single devotee comes, he comes into the sanctum sanctorum, and with a lot of devotion, he bows down his head. Yattad bhakti bharanatena shirasa, with a bow of the head, a low bow of the head, so lowering the head position. Yatra kvachit bibhrati, suppose he gets the first chance of getting the shatari on the head, then what happens? So suddenly all gods who came there are afraid. Oh, what will happen to us? Why? Vitra Brahma Vinadika Vadhipada Yatyasha Shanka Bharat Trasotkam Dasavisamstuladritihi. The whole group of the gods, Traivishtapanam Ganaha. Ganaha, the group, the host of the entire army of gods, Traivishtapanam, they are all in heaven. And what do they have now? Their fear is unfounded, but they have the fear. So, dhriti, visamstula dhritihi, they lose their courage. Why? So they see a devotee getting the shatari placed on his head by the priest in the temple. So what happens? They start shuddering. They start shaking with fear. Trasotkampa, by the fear, they become very restless. So kampadasha, why? They have a doubt, they have a fear. What was the fear? The fear was like a burden unto him. Shankabhara. So, what is the fear? So, the problem with the gods is their position is always tottering. Their chairs are not permanent. Their positions are temporary. And therefore, Ditra Brahma Vinadika, they remain just a few seconds on their position, calculated according to the time of the creator. 2 or 3 seconds only. Dvitra Brahma Vinadika. You know the calculation by Einstein's theory of relativity that a day for us is having 16 adikas, whereas the 365 days of a year is the daytime, 12 hours for Lord Brahma. So even that long time is creating a lot of fear in the minds of all gods, because whatever calculation can be done over the second, the time of second, just 1 second or 2 seconds or 3 seconds, creates fear in the minds of gods. Vitra Brahma Vinadika Avadhipada. So their position remains intact. They are permanent only for a few seconds. How come? One example that you would have heard about, Lord Indra, the leader of gods, was also pushed out. And then we had an earthly king, Nahusha, was replaced, or Nahusha replaced Lord Indra once upon a time. And that the reason was, Indra made a mistake. What was the mistake? So, the irate sage called Durvasa, he is ill-tempered, and he went and worshipped Lord Vishnu once upon a time. And Durvasa was blessed with a garland by Lord Vishnu. And the garland was brought to Indra, and Durvasa the sage gave the garland to Indra. And Indra, in turn, out of his insolence, haughtiness, he gave it to the elephant Airavatam with 4 tusks, white elephant. And the elephant, unfortunately, stamped with its feet the garland. So that was an insult to the garland blessed by Lord Vishnu. Durvasa became angry. Durvasa cursed Indra, and Indra lost his post. So this is in brief one of the examples how gods lose their positions. And therefore, so now as soon as a devotee comes to the temple of Sri Ranganatha Srirangam, gets the shatari on his head, all the gods who come there to worship along with him rather become jealous and become fearful that that particular gentleman, or rather the human devotee, will get higher position, and the gods will be replaced in that way. So we go to the 11th one. Padmakanta padantaranga vibhavodriktam padatram bhaje yad bhaktya namatam trivishtapasatam chudapadeshwarpitam nityapitana kendudidhiti sudha sandoha muchair mamatyantar nunam amantam antikalasat cheshapatachadmana. Now, having our memory over Vedantadeshika's feat, F-E-A-T, in composing 1008 verses within just 1.5 hours, rather the muhurta, in one of the fine evenings, with the spirit of competition, in order to win over the opponent. we understand that a lot of imaginations come to his mind to explain the greatness of Lord Ranganatha's divine feet. So here, welcome to Sri Rangaprasad Swami from Bangalore. So Padma Kanta Padantaranga Vibhavodriktam Padatram. What is the type of the divine sandals? How great are the divine sandals? Udriktam, they are very great. They are famous. They are popular. How? Padma Kanta Padantaranga Vibhava. As we saw the adventures of the divine feet of Ranganatha with the 5 examples earlier, in Rama's incarnation and in Krishna's incarnation, and as the Paramapadanatha in Sri Vaikuntha. So we saw 5, including these 3 forms, Pararupam, Vibhava Rupam. In Vibhava, Rama and Krishna. So now the divine sandals being closely attached like a close friend, Antaranga, comrade, Antaranga Vibhavaha. So all the secrets are known. All the heart is understood between the divine sandals and the divine feet. Whose divine feet? Padma Kanta, the lover. Kanta is the lover of Padma, goddess Mahalakshmi. So Ranganayika's lover, Padma Kanta, Pada, the divine feet of Ranganatha were friends, as we said. Previously, we saw the word Mitram. Now here, Antaranga Vibhav Udriktam. The divine sandals are now famous because they enjoy the popularity, rather inner popularity of the divine feet of Sri Ranganatha. And therefore, Vedantadeshika says, Padatram bhaje, I worship. Bhajanam is what we call, you touch with your heart, the divinity. We go to the temple, worship with a bow of the head, and always think of it by reciting the stotras like Padukasahasram. So Padatram bhaje. So I worship the divine sandals, which has the distinction of the same distinction of the adventures and the what we call feat or miracles done by the divine feet of Lord Ranganatha. Then what do we understand? Since gods also come and worship in Srirangam, Yat Bhaktya, so they also come with a lot of devotion. So Bhaktya Namatam, they also come and worship, bow down their heads. They keep their crowns under the divine sandals and then worship. So Bhaktya Namatam, who are they? Trivishtapasatam. So they are the good gods from the heaven. So what do they do? So Chudapadeshu Arpitam. Chudapada is the crown. So they remove their crowns from their heads and then they submit them to the divine sandals of Sri Ranganatha. So what happens now? Now as you see the scene, namely the situation where human devotees are there, the gods are there, and in their presence, what happened was some people offer many contributions to the divine personality, namely Ranganatha's divine feet and Ranganatha's divine sandals. And when they come and offer their submissions, namely some what we call upaharaha, we say. Sorry. Upahara. Upahara is Stephen. So Upahara, they bring coconut, they bring, of course, they cannot break the coconut because Ranganatha is in a lying position, he is doing what you call yoga nidra, and no coconut will be broken in the sanctum sanctorum because his sleep will be disturbed. So they bring flowers, they bring fruits, they bring so many other materials of worship, and they submit them to the priest. When they do it, they are specially honored by the priest. How do the priests honor them? Honor the special devotees who bring some offerings, namely Sheshapata. Sheshapata. So they have what we call Parivattam, as we say in Tamil. They have a cloth, a beautiful cloth, which has been used for the worship of the Lord Ranganatha, as well as the divine sandals and divine feet. So with the small cloth, they wind round the head of the sponsors, as we say, so the special devotees. And when they do it, so now the Sheshapata looks very clean, white, bright, beautiful, and so on. So how is it? Lasat Sheshapata, it's shining because it has the fortune of getting using it as the worshipping material for Lord Ranganatha, divine sandals, and the divine feet. So it is lasat, it is shining. So antika lasat, now we understand that we see the cloth nearby, so it is very nearby. Amantam, unlimitedly rather shining. Amantam, Noonam, definitely. So we have to feel the fortune of the cloth which was used for worship. So what do? Now, look at the Sheshapata, the white, the cloth on the head of the special devotees. So Chatmana, in the guise of the last word, in the guise of this Sheshapata, namely the white cloth, so you find that the divine sandals now give out light. So when they give out light, Vamati, they give out the light. How? Uchchaihi Vamati, they give bright light. So where is the bright light coming from? Sudha Sandoham, it's a nectar-like flow of white light. Where is the white light as a nectar flow? Nakha Indudidhiti. You find the brightness is coming from, effulgence is coming from, the moon-like light is coming from Nakha, the nails, the divine nails on the feet, divine feet of Ranganatha. Since the divine sandals always drink every day, forever, Nitya, Nityapita. So the divine sandals on the divine feet of Ranganatha drink the nectar of the brightness like a moon from the nails, the white nails that come from the divine feet. So with that, you find that the Sheshapata, the cloth wound around the head, looks very beautiful, looks pure white, and the rays of light coming from the divine sandals make the cloth whiter. And that is so when all the gods see this, they have some jealousy, they have some what you call surprise, they are wonderstruck that such a beautiful cloth is wound around the special devotees. So we go to the next one. Tad Vishnoho Paramam Padatrayugalam Trayanta paryantagam Chintatita vibhutikam Vitaratu Shreyansi bhuyamsi naha Yadvikranti dasha samutthita Pada prasyandi pathasvini sakhyena eva Sadanatasya tanute maulau sthitim shulinaha. Now, Vedantadeshika indirectly introduces the words from scriptures that you can understand very easily. As we do, as the priests do in the temple, as we do at home, in the Thirunarayanan, the puja for worship, Karpura Harati, Karpura Nirajanam is done. So we have special scriptural sentences to say that. Charanam pavitram vitatam puranam yena putastarati dushkritani tena pavitrena shuddhena putaha atipapmanamaratintarema lokasyatvaramacchimat pavitram jyotishmadbhrajamanam mahasvat amrutasya dhara bagudha dohamanam Sharanam no loke sudhidam dadhatu. So we say, especially in our sampradaya, this part of portion of scriptures, and we continue like this. Tad Vishno of Paramam Padagum Sada Pashyanti Suraya Divi Vachakshuratatam Tad Vipraso Vipanyavo Jagruvagum Sassamindhate Vishno Yat Paramam Padam. So we continue to say this. So now you see here the first two words. Tad Vishno Paramam. Tad Vishno Paramam Padatrayugunam. So when we consider that the divine feet of Lord Ranganatha are great, then we also can equate the greatness of the divine sandals, and therefore Tad Vishnoho to that Sriman Narayana's Parama Padam Paramam Padatrayuga. The divine sandals are also equally great. So Yugalam 2, Padatra, the divine sandals, Paramam is the highest. So Paramam, so how do we say that the divine sandals are the highest? They are the greatest because they are attached to the divine feet of the Lord. And not only because of that, but also because of that the scriptures extol the greatness of the divine sandals. Whenever the scriptures appreciate the greatness of the divine feet of the Lord, they also appreciate the divine feet of the sandals of Sri Ranganatha. Therefore, when we see the Upanishads, Trayanta Paryantagam, the greatness is understood till the end of the scriptures, namely last portion of the scriptures, namely Upanishads. Trayi is number 3, as you know, Rig Veda, Yajur Veda, and Sama Veda. These 3, they were the first to come up. And therefore, Anta, Trayanta is Veda Anta. Vedanta is Upanishad. So Upanishad Paryanta. So we can understand the greatness by reading the scriptures and understanding the meaning of the sentences. We can understand the divine feet's greatness and divine sandals' greatness. Then how far can we understand? Chintatita vibhutikam. The prosperity, the greatness is understood, the excellence is understood not by even imagination. Therefore, Chintatita. So we say the Sanskrit sentence in scriptures, Yato vacho nivartante aprapya manasa saha. Taittiriya Upanishad says this sentence. We try to understand the entire greatness of Lord but it is impossible because it is limitless. The greatness is unlimited. And therefore, we cannot understand, even when by words we cannot describe, though scriptures are limitless, ananta vai vedaha, but still they are not able to completely describe the greatness of the divinity. Plus, we try to use words with our limited vocabulary, but still we are not able to complete the description by words. Yato vacho nivartante. And we try to imagine by mind. So let us all go further beyond words to describe the greatness of the Lord. It is impossible. Apra-apya manasasaha. We don't reach the final goal. We don't see the border. We don't see the limit of the greatness. So we come back, we retreat, failing to describe fully the greatness of the Lord. So chintatita vibhutikam. The word vibhuti, you must have heard that it is a mark of ash on the forehead. And vibhuti means prosperity. Therefore, all those who follow this kind of tradition should wear on the forehead vibhuti, plus, of course, some fixed angas, the limbs wherein you have to wear the vibhuti. Vibhuti is not simply the divine ash, but it is called prosperity. And therefore, so the vibhuti, wearing the vibhuti will always give us the prosperity, as we have different types of marks on forehead, namely chandanam and so on. Gopi chandanam, we say. So chintatita vibhutikam. So this divine pair of sandals possess a lot of prosperity, unimaginably great. So what is the use of the greatness of the divine sandals? Let the pair of divine sandals give us that prosperity. Vitaratu, let it grant, let the pair of divine sandals grant us. Vitaratu. Now Vedantadeshika requests the sandals to bless him. Not only bless him, bless us also. He uses the word naha. So it's a plural word, bahuvachana shabda. So vitaratu shreyamsi. So all good must come to us, to all of us. How many times? Bhuyamsi, often, frequently. So these words are prayers to the divine sandals by Sri Vedantadeshika selflessly. He is not, previously you say, we pray to God, I pray to God, I bow to God. Bhaje, padatram bhaje, we saw that. Padatram bhaje, vrine, we saw the word vrine, I choose the divine feet to worship. Then bande, I salute, I bow my head. Bande, these are all singular words. Whereas when we come to this one, naha vitaratu, for the sake of us, for all of us, bhuyamsi shreyamsi vitaratu. So may the divine sandals distribute or grant, give us the boon of all goodness time and again, frequently. Because we need them in every step of our life. We need the blessings of the Lord. Because for anything and everything, for any action that we ought to perform, we need the blessings of God. So, yad vikranti dasha samut. Now, so you find that you have an example in the second half of the verse number 12 in this chapter, namely Prabhava Paddhati, the third chapter of Padukasahasram, namely, who is the first and the best example? Lord Shiva. Last word, Shulinaha. Shuli, one who has a trident in his hand to quell the devotees' enemies. Not quell the devotees, but devotees' enemies. devotees, apostrophe S after S. So here, so Shulinaha, Lord Shiva, being the grandson of Lord Narayana, created by Lord Brahma, he is the best and the first devotee. So Shulinaha, what does he do? So Natasya Shulinaha, he bows before the divine sandals of Sri Ranganath. How many times? Sada. So he is here always. As Ranganatha is present in the temple in the Archa form, Lord Shiva is always with him, with the grandfather. Sada, always, ever. Natasya, he bows his head. So what does he do? So Maulau, in his head, there are some ornaments in his Mula. Mula is an important part of the body, namely what we call in Sanskrit Uttamangam, the best limb. The best limb is the head, brain. So Maulau, so as an ornament, as a beautification, he has got moon. We are going to see the moon later. And the Ganges water is there. And the snakes are wound round. So you find that so the Ganges river water is there to purify. And so the moon is there to beautify. And Maulau he has the ornaments in the head. Sthitim, they are permanent there. They never go away from the Lord's head, Lord Shiva's head. So Lord Paramashiva, so why does he hold them? Namely, Sakhyena Iva, as though they are the friends. Ganges is a friend. So Sakhyam, friendship, because of the friendship. The Lord Shiva holds the Ganges river as a mark of friendship. And he bows down to the Lord's divine sandals of Ranganath. So what happened? How did the Ganges come into the head of Lord Shiva? There's a big story. I'll try to finish it in a few seconds. So now the third quarter of this verse, number 12, refers to the Vamana and Vamana the incarnation as a dwarf, and again of a short stature, and then he becoming the Trivikrama avatar, the universal form. We are going to look at the universal form a little later. So, Yad Vikranti Dasha, Vikranti, the two strides that he made, one step of 7 worlds, the other step of other 7 worlds. All the 14 worlds of the universe have been measured by just 2 feet. So 2 steps. So Yad Vikranti Dasha, in that position, what happened? Samuthita, that rose up, came up. What? From the feet. So Pada, Prasyandi, there was a flow, heavy flow. Pathaswini, a river. So that is the river called Ganges. Mandakini is the name of the ethereal Ganges, heavenly Ganges. So we say Pathaswini. Patha is the water. So Pathaswini. So Yad Vikranti Dasha Samuchita Pada Prasyandi Pathaswini Sakhyena. As though the friendship with the river Ganges, which flows from the divine feet, which came up especially during it was clearly seen during the Trivikrama Avatara of Lord Narayan. So there are 2 episodes now to give you in brief. So you have Sagara, a king of the solar race, tried to perform 100th Ashwamedha sacrifice. horse sacrifice. And all of you might know that those who perform, or one who performs the 100 Ashwamedha sacrifice, will become the future incumbent, rather, he will become the Lord of Gods. Indra, he will become Indra. So Indra's post is always temporary. Please remember. So Indra, who has done already the 100 Ashwamedha sacrifice, will be replaced if another person performs 100 Ashwamedha yagas. So the present Indra, the present position, in the present position, Indra will always prevent people from completing the 100th sacrifice. He will allow them to do 99, but he will not allow them to do the 100th one. And therefore, when Sagara tried to perform the 100th Ashwamedha sacrifice, the horse was stolen by Indra. The horse was stolen and it was taken to netherworld, Patala Loka, where Lord Narayana took the incarnation as a sage Kapila. Kapila, the sage, was the source of a shastra called Sankhya Shastram in Sanskrit. So he is the author of the Sankhya philosophy. So there were 6 philosophies. We will detail them later. So here, Sagara tried to find out where the horse is or was. And then what happened was Sagara's 60,000 sons went in search of the horse. 60,000 sons started to search for the horse in the whole earth. They did not find the horse. Therefore, they started digging the earth. And you see today, all the oceans on the earth are called sagaras. Sagaram is what we call ocean. So it was because it was dug by the 60,000 sons of Sagara, the king. Then even then it was impossible, and therefore they didn't reach the horse. So Sagara had a boy called Asamanjaha. Then Asamanja, of course, was not intelligent enough to try to find the horse. And then Asamanja had a son called Amshuman. Amshuman performed a lot of penance towards Lord Brahma to find out where the horse was. And then even he could not, in his span of life, complete the task. So Amshuman had a son called Dilipa. And Dilipa could not complete it. So Dilipa had a son called Bhagiratha. And now you understand the word Bhagiratha. We always use it for those who perform a lot of efforts. Bhagiratha Prayatnaha, we say. So the lot of efforts were done by Bhagiratha. He prayed to Lord Brahma. Lord Brahma in turn prayed to Lord Srimanarayana. Lord Srimanarayana gave the concession to allow the Ganges to flow down. And then Brahma saw that the Ganges was angry to come down to earth. And therefore, so again, Bhagiratha had to perform penance towards Lord Shiva to contain the flood of Ganges. So as soon as the Ganges tried to break rather have the insolence to break the head of Lord Shiva contained it in his matted hairs. And therefore again, Bhagiratha had to perform a lot of penance, many years of penance to please Lord Shiva, and then Lord Shiva allowed the Ganges to come down to earth. So it was called Ganga. Again, Ganga did not stop and subdue her pride. So it damaged the hermitage of a sage called Jannu. And therefore, again, Bhagiratha had to make a total surrender to the divine feet of the sage called Jannu. And then the Ganges came to be called Jannavi. And he left the Ganges, he rather released the Ganges through the years. And then the Ganges flowed to Patala, namely it became Patala Ganga. And then the 60,000 sons who were burnt to ashes by Kapila the sage because of his anger. And since the 60,000 sons thought that Kapila was the thief of the horse, the 60,000 sons were drenched with the Ganges water, holy water. Their ashes were drenched with holy water, and they came back to the heaven. So with this small episode here, with regard to the episode of Vamana and Trivikrama, Bali, Mahabali was also proud of his position. He tried to control all gods, and Lord Narayana had to incarnate like a dwarf as a son of Kashyapa. He became the younger brother of Lord Indra, the Kashyapa, the sage, with Aditi, the wife. So Vamana appeared directly as a what we call Upanita, Batu. He was a boy with the umbrella, with the kamandalu, with the stick in the hand, with the maunji, the belt, and with the rather paduka, the sandals. So you know the story. So he went and attended the yaga performed by Bali, Mahabali. So in the yaga, Mahabali as a Yajamana, the sponsor, must always give whatever is demanded by the visitor. Therefore, he asked for 3 steps of earth, and Mahabali was deceived. So within 2 steps of the Lord, the whole universe was measured. And when Lord Vamana asked Bali, where is the 3rd step? He could only show his head to place the feet on his head. Even today, we say Mahabali is Chiranjeevi, and Mahabali's house in netherworld is taken care of as by Shivan Narayana as a god, G-U-A-R-D. The god became the god, G-U-A-R. So with these 2 small episodes contained in this verse number 12, so we find that the great sandals, the greatness of the divine sandals, attached very much closely to the divine feet of Lord Ranganatha of Srirangam, appreciated by the scriptures, namely in the last part, especially the Upanishads, and we cannot even imagine the prosperity or the greatness of the divine sandals. So may those divine sandals bless all those who hear this particular Padukasahasram verse in this session. And we all now we must all feel blessed, as though Lord Shiva also helps us in making our mind holy, pure, by the holy waters of the Ganges from his head. And since Lord Shiva shows us the example that we must all bow to the divine sandals forever, we understand, we follow Lord Shiva. And as you know, as I told you, I think, the Mantra Raja Pathastotram of Sri Lord Narasimha has been composed by Lord Shiva, blessed to us from the Atharva Veda, and it gives us the Narasimha mantra in detail with the meaning. So with this, I have the privilege of giving you the 5 minutes for discussion, and also I want to say that the last verse of the Padukasahasram, Jayati iti raja sukti, Jayati mukundasya padukayugali, Taduvaya dhanas trivedim, Avandhyayanto jayanti bhuvi santaha, Kavitarkika samhaya, Kalyana gunashaline, Srimate Venkateshaya, Vedanta Gurave Namaha. So you are okay, good. So Riti Sweetman has given the message. The Vibhuti mark on Pragyananda, the current world chess champion, has indeed elicited much interest and curiosity in the Eastern world. Very good. So as usual, you are all appreciating me, but you must appreciate Vyoma Linguistics Lab Foundation in order to thank them, because you are all able to hear about the Padukasahasram verses by the explanation given in each verse. So we find that beautifully the ideas which are inside the verse within detail, and within 1.5 hours, when he had composed 1,008 verses, we don't know how much knowledge is put in. Radhe Krishna. And I used to say Godaranga, Godaranga or Goderanga, because Andal as Goda, the goddess of grains, Neela Devi, is very much attached from Shivilliputtur to Srirangam. So she came and married him, and she is one of them who became one with him. We always say Goderanga. So instead of saying Ayyo, Appa, Amma, and so on, we used to say Goderanga. So here Vedantadeshika also recommends that whenever we finish a ritual, we say Sri Krishnarpanam Astu. That's what we say. But whereas Vedantadeshika recommends to say Sri Krishna Padukarpanam Astu. Thank you so much for. There are only 15 participants, and others must be given email, and they must be benefited by understanding the depth of the Padukasahasram verses. So I don't know how to unmute the participants if they have, just like Annapurni Sridharan to say the Taniyan. You are welcome again. So we have regular attendees like Vishwajit Acharya. Okay.
Namaskara.
Namaskara.
Sriman Venkatanatarya Kavitarkika Kesari Vedantacharya Varyo me Sannidhatham Sada Hridi Kavitarkika Simhaya Kalyana Gunashaline Srimate Venkateshaya Vedanta Gurave Namaha.
So I want to list the beautiful names of the devotees of Padukasahasram: Vishalakshi Ramani, Shubhashri, Riti Sweetman, Rangaprasad Swami, a great friend, Prabha Sheshagiri, and Janardhan, Yam Krishna Kumari, Padma Patsasarati, Jayanti Sridhar. Jayanti Sridhar had a question yesterday. If possible, you can Freya somebody. So I give the chance to talk.
Yeah.
So
Yesterday I thought, but after your after that explanation, I understood that.
Okay. What was your rather question?
Sorry, language problem.
Right.
I don't. Okay.
So you have your Kannada, your mother tongue is Kannada?
Tamil.
Then you can ask in Tamil.
Sorry. எனக்கு சரியா சொல்ல தெரியல, பட் எனக்கு அது புரிஞ்சிடுச்சு, அதனால நான் அப்புறம் விட்டுட்டேன். தன்யவாதம்.
So anyone else? So already it is 6. Please
Mama,
inform your
Annapurni.
friends if you know the attendees that the timing is changed to 5 to 6 p.m. every day. And therefore, we meet only on from Mondays to Thursdays. So,
Namaskaram, Mama. Annapurni here.
Ah.
அதாவது நீங்க எவ்ரிடே இந்த செஷன் முடியறப்போ அந்த வெறும் அந்த நீங்க எத்தனை நடத்தினாலும் அந்த ஸ்லோகத்தை ரிசைட் பண்ணினாக்கா நமக்கு கொஞ்சம் ஃபாலோ பண்ணி அதை அப்படியே கத்துக்கிறதுக்கு ஒரு சான்ஸ் இருக்கும்.
I can spend a few minutes for just today's verses.
Thank you so much.
So we saw the 9 yesterday. So now today we started with the 10. Vande tanmadhukaita bhari padayor mitram padatradvayam yattad bhakti paranatena shirasa yatra kvachit bibhrati Ditra brahma vinadikavati padat vityasa shanka bharatrasokampa dasha visamsthula dhritir traivishtapanam ganaha. So Vyoma Linguistics Lab Foundation staff, Maheshwari, has done the great job of splitting the words so that you can easily read them and even sing them. 11th one, Padmakanta Pada Antaranga Vibhavodriktam Padatram Bhaje Yadbhaktya Namatam Trivishtapasatam Chuda Padeshwarpitam Nityapita Nakhendu Didhiti. You can also separate Nakha Indu Didhiti Sudha Sandoham Uchair Vamati Antar Nunam Amantam Antikala Satchesha Patachadmana. I think so. Tad Vishnu, 12th one. Tad Vishnu Paramam Padatrayugalam Trayanta Paryantagam Chintatita Vibhutikam Vitaratu Sheyamsi Bhuyamsinaha Yad Vikranti Dasha Samutchita Padat Prasyanti Pachasvini Sakkheneva Sadanatasya Tanute Maulau Sthitim Shulinaha. So
thank you so much, Mama.
We will, yeah, please tell me again. We'll take up 13 tomorrow. So anything else that you can express? Thanks to, right. So read this song, right. So participants know. Yeah, you have the chance to talk.
Thank you, Dhanyavada Mahodaya. It's so beautiful. It's like an exercise in mindfulness. So when we go to the mandir, we see Devata and Devi. We focus on what they are wearing, their face, look at the eyes and hands, and we imagine lots of things. We are carried away. I've never looked at the feet. I've never looked at the Khatvangam, nothing of the sort. But you have now focused my eyes from right to the bottom. The feet service all of us, and we take it for granted. Nobody cares about foot care at all. We do our faces, we do the hair, we do our fingernails and all that fashion. But who does the feet? Because feet are always covered, and we punish them most of all. But this is so beautiful. We start from the bottom and we raise our hands to the Lord in reverence. Fantastic. It's the real education for me.
Thank you. You are from which country?
I'm from India, but I have lived for more than half my life in Britain. And so it's circumstances. You know, when I was 5 years old, a Swami came to our house and he said to my mother, her parents-in-law will live 7 seas apart. And that came true many years ago. So I've lived here for the sake of my children and the family, and this is my life here. But I'm still, I've not refused my religion. I stay vegetarian, and my worship is the same. It's so, so lovely because I was educated in an English medium school in India, and they did not educate us in Hindu Dharma or anything like that in those days, in the last century. So this is a true education for me. Dhanyavada and lots of pranams. Thank you. Most
I
great.
also served a Christian college, Catholic Christian college. So of course they were Catholic in outlook. They were broad-minded, and therefore I could proceed with my, as you said, Sanatana Dharma propagation without any impedance. That's the. And again, with regard to a particular your view, you said, I want to remind all of you here that when you go to the temple of Akhilandeshwari nearby, what we call Thiruvannaikaval in Tamil, near Srirangam. So you go there and worship what we call Uplingam, the Lord Shiva in the form of water. And when you see the goddess Parvati, you must look at not at the divine feet, but at the divine studs, ear studs. And these are all some special types of worship that we have. Tadanga Mahimna Stotram is a devotional song composed and blessed by Adi Shankaracharya, and he adorned the goddess Akhilandeshwari with ear studs. So the ear studs are the concentrated, one of the objects of worship in that temple. So why I say this is, as you said, so starting from the divine feet of the Lord to the head of the Lord, we must try to concentrate every divine limb of the Lord. Okay. Thank you. Thank you so much. Encourage your friends, inform your friends of different timings and so on. Thank you. We'll stop here. We'll proceed tomorrow.